1 year since the 2017 general election, the presidential election, the first time round being annulled, forcing a repeat election, we get to take stock of just some of the key events around that time. And of course, in the past 1 year, and tonight I'm speaking to the CEO of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that's Ezra Chiloba. Thank you for making time for us. The Supreme Court found there were irregularities in that election. So do you still oppose and disagree with their finding?
You got to go back and analyze that decision. When the court said there were illegalities or irregularities, what did they mean? What was actually, what is it that the court was talking about? I've had many people talk about messing up with the numbers, but the bottom line is, if you look at the thematic area, the court highlighted as irregularities and illegalities, you'll be surprised. When the court talks about illegalities, they talk about electoral offenses committed by the party that the president ran on, that is Jubilee. It was never about the commission, that section. But when it comes to irregularities, the emphasis is on the form of the if I can phrase it that way. How did the forms appear? And what they were measuring on was the issues to do with the discrepancies that we've just talked about. You do not have barcodes in some of the forms, or there's no signatures by presiding officers or returning officers.
Which are crucial, because that's what IBC had promised would happen, and then there were instances that was...
Yeah, and which I've said, there's certain things that happened, but there was no deliberate effort by officers to play or sabotage the electoral process.
Politics almost took hostage the commission, in as far as on one side you had NASA saying you must go, you could not continue to be in office, there were protests around the same. Then on the other side you had the deputy president, I beg your pardon, at one point saying that he was aware of the chairman of the commission having night meetings with political players, so that both sides suspicious of each other within the commission, and all these players saying these things, looking as if some were supporting this camp, and the country is watching and seeing all of this and saying, these people, politics has infiltrated the commission.
Now, I mean, if you look at the role of the commission under the Constitution, you'd always become a target at a given point in time. A lot of things will be said about the institution, the individuals who are there, partly because we control access to political power. I mean, if you look at it, we control access to political power. And given that situation...
Is it control? I thought the control is with the people. You facilitate the process of the people controlling.
I mean, what I meant is a simple way of presenting.
Because controlling then means you decide.
But that's not what I mean. What I mean is that we more or less regulate, actually, if you have to be more, you regulate access to power by ensuring that we have proper elections. And because of that responsibility, there's a lot of tension that is likely to emanate in the political sphere, being a democracy. And people say all manner of things. They will try to want to have control over the institution. And your responsibility, as it is under the Constitution, they said, you have to be able to stand firm. You have to be able to work independently, in spite of all the challenges surrounding political pressure.
Finally, Msando, the late Chris Msando, 1 year since he died, just marked the other day, and he continues to moan, and the saddest part is, to date, no answer. He was an official in the commission. He believed in a clean, proper system working to deliver to Kenyans, and for that he was gruesomely killed. And in terms of IEBC, or you even as CEO, pushing for answers to help the family to be able to close this, what do you say? Because there are those who say IEBC just, left them to their fate.
No, I mean, it's a sad thing that we have to discuss that matter over and over again. Musando was killed just a week before the election, and that was devastating for all of us. It was devastating for all of us. We hoped that by now we'll have seen a bit of progress. I know that there were investigations that were conducted, or they were being conducted. There were interviews that were conducted. People were summoned to be able to, narrate their side of the story. But, I mean, since I left, I think the last interview that I'm aware of, I think, happened in January this year. But I've not been able to get what has transpired since then, given the...
All right, that was that exclusive interview with the suspended IEBC CEO, Ezra Chiloba. And 1 year after the general election, exactly 1 year ago today, Kenyans went to the poll, a very controversial election. And we want to take a look, just take stock of the state of the nation. Are Kenyans happy with the state of governance, with the performance of the leaders that they elected on that day and even after the repeat presidential poll? And to have that conversation, I am joined in studio by Nelson Koech, Honorable Nelson Koech, who is the Member of Parliament for Belgut. Karibu sana.
Asante, thank you.
I also have Vincent Kemosi, who is the Member of Parliament for West Mugirango.
Thank you.
And let's just start with the state of governance and leadership 1 year after the election. How would you rate, governance as oversight? Your role is to conduct oversight. How would you say the state of governance is, for the country?
Thank you, Sharon. 1 year after the elections, I think the country has moved on. Let me say this. In terms of political arena, all politically, the country has moved on. You remember the March handshake, where President Uhuru Kenyatta and the NASA, or rather ODM leader Raila Odinga, met and they had a discussion where we had an historic handshake. So to say, politically, the temperature is down, and we have not seen so much political activities in terms of violence in the country. So that means we have moved on politically, and that is good for the country, because we expected to have even foreign investors coming in to invest. And in terms of economical field, or in terms of our economy, let me say that we have not moved on much. If you look at the state of the economy in terms of GDP, actually this year we prospected to go about 4.5, 4.9, around there. So we have not moved on, and we have had several challenges. One is flooding. We had flooding which really, destroyed the roads and the like, which have not been repaired. So we have not been able to move on in terms of field. Even the productive activities like agriculture, manufacturing, we have not moved on.
Right. And you speak about moving on politically. And there's still a section of Kenyans who felt let down or betrayed by Right Honorable Raila Odinga, saying that, there was all this agitation for what they termed electoral justice, and felt like with the handshake on March 9th, that quest came to a standstill. What do you say to that, Honorable Koech?
First, also, let me join my colleague in saying that as a country, we've made a tremendous stride. You can imagine, who will have imagined that 1 year down the line we'll be sitting at the same table with the opposition. I must, in the first place, commend Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the President for bringing the country together, and so that we can work as a nation. That is number one. Number two is that it will be foolhardy for anyone to imagine that, all the gains that were meant to have been achieved are all lost. It is not all lost. What people should be aware is that what this really meant was that now we tone down on the politics and start focusing on development as a nation. And that is where we should be does not mean that all the other agitations toward reforms and many other things that people really wanted in government are lost, and it should be known. I want also to throw caution, Sharon, over this arrangement that are coming together. Of course, we've come together as a nation, we've joined together, we're working together. The biggest caution that I must give is that, no one now seems to be talking from the opposition.
Right.
You find a situation...
And there is place for that, the importance for opposition.
Yes, we must put the government in check, and the only way to put government in check, any government in any democracy, must be put in check by an opposition.
Right.
Now, it should be very clear that, when they come, it seems now that, the people, the side of the opposition have come into government and they want to speak for government. And you find some in government speaking as if they are in the opposition. This gap has been made by mere no proper structures between the handshake, and no one knows where they are properly placed. And that is a caution that I want to give.
And what then needs to be done, and where does that conversation actually begin if you're speaking from the same point?
Actually, the issue of electoral reforms is not an agenda which has been up. Cause. So to say
but then now who drives that agenda is the question.
That is what I'm saying. We need to give the Building Bridges initiative. The panel is meeting and is coming out with the agenda on which areas to touch. And I'm very sure it will come up, it will touch on electoral reforms. That is one. Two, as members of parliament, we have also not abandoned the electoral reforms because this is a very important aspect. If we have to move on in terms of our electoral practices in future, if we do not want to have the repeat of elections which we have had in 2013, 2017 and the previous years, as members of parliament, once we have seen the report of the Building Initiative panel, if it does not capture actually the electoral reforms, then we have a responsibility as members of parliament to initiate that reform process. And I want to assure you that we will be ready to do that so that we can be able to move on, failure to which is either this country goes forward or we perish altogether.
Right. And there's clearly a crisis at the IEBC. As members of parliament, what efforts are you doing to see it reconstituted? Because it's something that many would say would need to be addressed as a matter of urgency.
I think you are aware that some of the commissioners resigned at the end of the year. But as the House actually, we are moving on. I think there was a meeting within the Senate Parliamentary Committee on Justice. And also I've seen the Implementation Committee, the Parliament, the International Assembly. They could be having some, they must have started the process.
Right.
You know the law stipulates that upon receiving resignation of the commissioners, the President shall in the within 7 days be able to constitute the panel which will be able to actually appoint the commissioners. So to say, I'm very sure something is being worked by the two parliamentary committees, that is the Parliamentary Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, at the same time Constitution Implementation Committee of Parliament. I think they have met the current commissioners, and very soon I think we will have the panel to recruit the commissioners.
All right, and let's look inwards now within the House. Exactly 1 year since the election, Kenyans put you in office to come and legislate. Very important roles you played with legislations and oversight. How would you rate the performance of the 12th Parliament 1 year later in terms of its mandate to conduct oversight and to legislate?
I think we've done very well, depending on the cases that have come forth. There's committees have been up on so many investigative matters that have been happening in the country. This afternoon, we'll be having the sugar report over the contaminated sugar that was in the country. It will be tabled in Parliament this afternoon. There was also an investigation by a Committee of Environment on the Solai Dam and various aspects of the community that have been going on. We've been extremely busy. This afternoon, again, we'll be tabling the report on ambassadors, vetting of ambassadors to different missions and embassies abroad. And if you asked me, as Parliament, we've done extremely well.
But the Speaker is not so happy with the House committees.
The Speaker will only issue a warning on where he sees that there's probably reluctance on particular committee, and that can only be a matter of that particular committee. But the general House is, we discuss what has been put on the floor of the House, and until then you will know how to gauge members of Parliament. But on different committees, those are mandates of different committees, and probably there has been a bit of laziness in some of the committees, but majorly, most of the committees have been up to the task, and we are doing well.
Let me add this, Sharon.
Right.
Article 95 and 96 of the Constitution of Kenya, it expressly spells out the role of the members of Parliament, and that is one, registration; two is a representation; three is a budget-making process. And I can say that as a House we have performed well, if I can say that all the members of Parliament, I'm very sure, they are working very closely with their electorates, and actually they are implementing projects in their constituencies. Most of us, we have given bursaries and other projects which we have initiated. Then secondly, in terms of oversight, we are doing well. Of course, we are oversighting the government. You have seen during the budget making process, we were able to interrogate those government agencies which have done well and which have not done well, like the NYS which had not done well, which has been hit by corruption. We really scaled down the budget from 22 billion shillings to about 11 to about 11 billion shillings. So we have done exemplary well. And as my colleague has said, we are actually a House which is very busy. In terms of committees, we are effecting ambassadors, we are effecting, various heads of government agencies, commissions, and we are moving well.
Right, but for a House, composed of 349 members, we are almost always seeing the House almost empty, with quorum issues every other Wednesday. This is something that would concern Kenyans who have sent their members to represent them in legislation.
Sharon, you must realize that there are committees in place. There are committees, and these committees many times are probably asked to go and check what happens outside. For instance, you'll find if you are to go and write a report on Solai Dam, then the same environment committee, all of them will have to travel to Solai to find the situation on the ground. And there are different committees doing all these things. I saw last week there was a committee that was touring the stadiums in the country to see how we can improve on the stadiums. Our committee last week, Defense and Foreign Relations, where I sit, we were doing vetting of the ambassadors. So you find that in all these committees also are engaged fully on other activities that are purposely serving the same House. So, it's different. So the people who are in the House, of course, are also aware that there are engagements that are being done outside by members of Parliament. There are members of Parliament sometimes who are even out of the country for different reasons, parliamentary reasons, that is.
But majority and minority leaders have said that, that members are engaged in rent-seeking, that kind of stuff. So has those internal issues.
Actually, it's not the majority and minority you have said, but there was a report on a cross-section of the media, you guys, I think last week, where the media had reported that members of Parliament are rent-seeking, they are receiving handouts and the like. But I want to say this. No specific case has been, identified that so-and-so has been able to receive this or that. All those were allegations which the House is looking at. And I want to assure you that the members of Parliament are members of honor. They have been elected to those positions. And I'm very sure they are, conducting themselves with quorum, with decorum. However, if we have isolated cases where, those issues come up, then the House has committees, internal committees, which will look at those allegations, and whoever is culpable will be able.
All right, and of course, after 1 year of the election, Kenyans want to get to a place where we go away from the politics and now focus on development and good governance. And the government has the Big Four agenda blueprint. Is this something that is also, with the handshake that is guiding the leadership and development agenda for both the opposition and and Jubilee, is it?
Allow me to say that unless there are proper structures that are put in place over this handshake, I mean, first of all, you must realize that Jubilee on its own was going to form the government. It didn't need any support from anywhere. All these that are coming in are only enhancing the position of Jubilee, and that is the party that is ruling at the moment. So, first of all, I must commend this statesman for allowing these other parties to join in and work together as a team. So the agenda that we have at the moment in the country is the agenda of Jubilee, and that is a big four agenda. This, the opposition team will bring the energy needed, the environment, peaceful environment to transact the business of the big four agenda. As we have moved forward, I mean, going ahead, you see, I mean, it's 1 year, we have done 1 year. We need to move with speed, and I like what the president did first. First of all, it was the president to check on the corruption, which was, he has come out very strongly as a government, fighting corruption so that we don't have taxpayers' money being lost and we have them in people's pockets. That one is put a very strong measures. We fully support him. Now it is to roll out the big four agenda. The deputy president every other week is out of Nairobi, launching different development projects of the country, all geared towards the big four agenda. We have a budget that is coming out. We will make legislations also to support the big four agenda. And I think going forward now, the president should come out very strongly, roll them out so that we know, and then Mwananchi starts feeling the effect of the big four.
Right. And there's the Building Bridges initiative. And many say there really can never be peace and without justice. Do you feel like it's built on, what would you rate, how would you say, with the mandate, what they're supposed to do? Is it in a good place to deliver what they're supposed to do?
Yes, yes. The Building Initiative panel, I think we need to give them time so that they can come up with the findings, actually. You've seen them advertise and call for memoranda, which I think will close around 7th of October. People are now free, Kenyans are now free to express what they want, you know, before they go all over the country to correct views. So the issue of justice, the issue of economy, the issue of electoral reforms, all issues pertaining this country, Kenyans will have an opportunity to, you know, express their feelings, to express their views, which aspects they could want, you know, this panel to deal with, and which areas they could want to be tackled in terms of reforms in Kenya. So it's high time that we give them time. You know, their scope is not limited. They are going to receive views wholesome. Then after they have received the report, then we'll be able to see which areas needs to be.
Right, and even as we come to a close, there are some overarching issues that Kenyans are facing that cuts across, whether despite your political affiliation, the corruption, which every Kenyan is feeling. We have gross, you know, levels of youth unemployment. Is there any hope that, you know, the war on corruption will be yielding results, that the Kenyan youth will be getting opportunities for employment?
Like the president did, it was unprecedented that, you know, the president has come out extremely strongly in acting on matters corruption. The DPP and all the agencies, multi-agencies, are working in synergy to make sure that corruption cases are expedited and people are prosecuted in a court of law. These send a serious signal to anyone who is attempting to participate in matters of corruption. We have officers who've been sent out, all supply chains from all parastatals in the country, as we are talking at home. Lifestyle audit is being done secretly on different individuals in government positions. This sends a serious warning that the government is fighting corruption. And look at the cases that have been taken to court of late. There are big people being implicated. EACC investigating very, very big scandals. We have a Ruaraka land case that is before EACC. Governors being put to court, put to court for different corruption cases. Members of parliament have not been spared either. So it is cutting across the country, and that for once is showing the seriousness this government has put in fighting corruption. That money will be saved. Huge amounts of money will be saved that will go now on employment of youth and improvement of infrastructure. This year, the railway from Nairobi, that cuts across Mai Mahiu has started in earnest. The works are going on. Dams have started, construction of dams has started. The Deputy President last week was in Mount Kenya region for opening of development projects, roads, dams. So I think as a country, we are seeing activity starting now in seriousness, and I'm sure with saving of taxpayers' money through corruption, a lot of work is going to be put in place. And youth employment, which I've also advocated for, even in Parliament, will in time. You know, it does not have to be that you must have a white-collar job to be employed.
Right.
Construction of railways employs youth, bringing up of industries under the Big Four agenda.
And availing funds for
yes,
youth
and
projects.
availing funds for youth projects. Immediately, all that is internalized and we start the progress, then in the fullness of time, you will see that as a country, we will employ so many youth and we will be working towards Vision 2030. And in 4 years, the President will have left a brilliant that is good for all of us.
Honorable Kemosi, your thoughts on that? Whether do you agree that the war on corruption now has taken a good pedestal where we are?
One of the achievements that we can say we have done in terms of governance actually is a fight against corruption. You've seen very senior government officials, right from NYS, KPLC, and even the former city county workers who have been implicated and have been sentenced. So the fight against corruption where we are on the right track. And we expected that much more will be done. You have also seen the DPP, how he has done his work. He is not fearing, he has really recommended prosecution of high-level government officials.
Right.
So to say, going forward, the president, has also shown is more keen in fighting corruption this time than ever. The audit, the lifestyle audit, which was started a while ago, and also the procurement officers who were asked to go on leave. So those are among the practices or among the indicators that the fight against corruption is not going to spare anybody.
Right.
And there is political will to fight that corruption.
Okay. And lastly, whilst we have moved on politically as a country, that handshake, the agreement that now there's all the good things that can be said about that. But at the time, there were people we experienced pockets of violence during the elections. Some lost their children, some lost their lives, some were injured. As elected leaders, what are you doing to fight for the justice for those who experienced the victims of such violence during the elections?
You've added the NASA leader, Raila Odinga, saying that among the issues that they were able to discuss with the president, and he has always said, is that the victims of post-election violence will be treated. And we are really looking forward for justice to prevail. So many people lost their lives. So many people lost their property. And therefore, we are hoping that the government, in fullness of time, will find it appropriate to be able to compensate these people.
And even perhaps bring him to book, because there are cases where investigations can lead to finding out exactly how such incidents happen.
Yes, where investigations will be able to find out that some people were culpable, then definitely the law will take its own course. These people should be arrested and be charged in court. Having said that, the Building Initiative will also be able to correct views on those areas which were, hit by political violence during election period and the pre-election period. So in the report, we expected them to also touch on the areas which were hit and to which extent the political mess occurred.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Also, allow me, before we conclude, to I see you have breaking news, to most sincerely condole with the family of one of the athletes in this country, the former champion of 400 meters, Nicholas Bett. My sincere condolences.
Okay, and that's just what we're going to break right now. But thank you very much, gentlemen. Honorable Vincent Kemosi, Honorable Nelson Koech, thank you for coming to have this discussion with us. And we have breaking news now, sad story. Former 400 meters hurdles world champion Nicholas Bett is dead. Bet died in a road accident in Nandi County, and we shall be having our correspondent from Eldoret, Elvis Kosgei, just giving us updates on how that happened and what is currently happening. But that is the breaking news that the former 400-meter hurdles world champion Nicholas Bet is dead, and he died in a road accident in Nandi County. We do send our condolences to his family. Right, and at this point we want to take a short break here on KTN News Center, but don't go too far. We have more news when we return.